Donald Trump is done with Kristi Noem. And not because of her corruption or the Americans who have died because of the thugs in her dits. No, Donald Trump is done with Kristi Noem for the exact reason he built his administration the way he did, because she's bad on camera. That's how Donald Trump decided who he wanted in his cabinet and who he didn't. It was all about who could go on Fox, who could appear on the now MAGA-controlled CBS, the soon-to-be MAGA-controlled CNN, and lie for Donald Trump. He wanted Fox hosts, former reality TV stars like himself, because that's how Donald Trump spreads his message. It's not about competence, it's about bold, shameless lying. But Kristi Noem, no matter what she does to her face, just isn't good on camera anymore. That's why Donald Trump pulled her out of Minneapolis, and that's why he now wants her out of her job. He's already testing the waters with Republican members of Congress about how they feel regarding a possible replacement. And it all started with Kristi Noem's 2 back-to-back disastrous testimonies in the House and the Senate. But one particular issue truly set Donald Trump off. The Jamie Raskin grilling right here, which is now leading to threats of her firing.
Treating the billions of dollars our colleagues showered on your department like a personal slush fund. You budgeted an astonishing $220 million for media consultant contracts so you can star in self-promoting photo shoots and lavish ad campaigns like this one of you riding horseback at Mount Rushmore, which was shot during last year's government shutdown. You're living rent-free in the official waterfront residence reserved for the commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard. You spent $172 million to buy not 1, but 2 luxury jets for your travel, and now you're using taxpayer funds to lease a 3rd jet, a $70 million luxury 737 MAX with a queen-size bedroom in the back, a deluxe serving bar, and 4 flat-screen TVs. A big, beautiful jet paid for by the big, beautiful bill. Yesterday, under questioning the Senate, you said you plan to refurbish this jet to make it into this kind of airplane, which is what's actually being used for deportations in order to save the taxpayers' money. In other words, you're saying that's actually a deportation plane, but wouldn't it have been cheaper just to buy a deportation plane in the first place? It's like buying a Rolls Royce to turn into a Metro bus. I was almost prepared to buy that story of how the jet was both for executive travel and mass deportation. And then I heard about an airborne episode of entitlement, arrogance, and contempt that I could hardly believe. Apparently, when your special blanket, your blankie, was left on one of the government jets and not transported over to the new one, your special government employee, Corey Lewandowski, chivalrously stepped forward to fire the pilot midair, a 2003 Coast Guard Academy graduate and distinguished U.S. Coast Guard commander in Air Station, Washington, D.C. But then he had to be rehired immediately because there was no one else who could fly the two of you on the rest of the journey back home. Secretary Noem, you're flying high now, maybe even a little bit too close to the sun. But with all these free planes and houses and pilots, you've traveled a long distance from your actual job and the things you should be doing as head of Homeland Security. Your agency is charged with protecting the homeland. It includes FEMA, TSA, the Secret Service, the Coast Guard, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, as well as ICE and CBP. Yet you've hollowed out the national security mission. You redeployed thousands of people responsible for tracking terror financing and fighting cyber threats to go work on your mass immigration roundup. You reassigned to the roundup agents working a key national security probe into Iran's terror financing, paralyzing that investigation.
I don't even think Donald Trump is angry about the corruption. Yes, Kristi Noem allegedly took hundreds of millions of dollars from American taxpayers and funneled it to herself, her friends, and her lovers, which we should talk about in a moment. But I don't even think that's what has Trump so upset. I think it's simply that the ads looked ridiculous. Kristi Noem launched this entire campaign, as we've discussed before, where she ran advertisements trying to do her best Yellowstone-style impression, riding around on horses. But it wasn't just about Christie going as far as possible to make as much money as possible for herself and her friends. She did it because she wanted to boost her political appeal within the MAGA base and get her face seen all across the country. So much so that she reportedly arranged for those ads to run specifically in Mar-a-Lago whenever Donald Trump was home. That's what this was about for Christie, trying to get Trump's attention. She wanted to make her face famous because, for some reason, she believes she's the future of MAGA. But it's hard to be the future of MAGA if you can't even hold on to your current job, which, according to reports, is now in jeopardy. According to an exclusive report, Trump is considering Senator Markwayne Mullin as a replacement for Kristi Noem, and he's privately furious about her Senate testimony. Trump is reportedly angry because during her testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Noem suggested that he had personally approved a $220 million taxpayer-funded advertising campaign that was later subcontracted to one of her allies. Reports say the president is frustrated that the embattled cabinet secretary repeatedly implied under oath that he knew about and approved the multi-million-dollar campaign, which prominently featured her, before the agency finalized the contract. According to sources familiar with Trump's thinking, he has even been asking Republican members of Congress whether he should fire DS Secretary Kristi Noem. Several GOP lawmakers say they've spoken with him about it. It wouldn't surprise me if those Republican lawmakers aren't pushing Trump because they're outraged that Americans died under Noem's watch, or because $220 million of taxpayer money was spent on an ad campaign that made her look ridiculous. They probably want the job themselves. They see the Dace position as a way to climb the political ladder or to please the dear leader, Mr. Trump. That's the Republican civil war we're witnessing right now. Marco Rubio is losing support from the base almost as quickly as J.D. Vance because they're tied to yet another war, an endless war, a war tied to Israel, which has angered the supposedly anti-war wing of the MAGA movement, even if that claim is a bit of a joke. So anyone arguing for Noem's removal is probably also arguing for themselves. That may very well be what Markwayne Mullin is doing. But the fact that Kristi Noem managed to anger Donald Trump over corruption when his entire administration profits from the presidency and government contracts is almost funny. Donald, you realize that's your whole thing. It would make sense that other people around you might also get involved in corruption. It's a bit hypocritical to say, well, Kristi, you can't steal money, only I can steal money. Me, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, Todd Blanche, who's also making money through crypto, everyone else can profit, just not you. But again, I genuinely think Trump isn't upset about the stolen money. He's upset because the commercials looked stupid. Honestly, it may come down to the fact that Kristi Noem didn't embarrass herself by being a criminal or corrupt in Trump's eyes. She embarrassed herself by being bad on television. And in the end, that's what matters most to Donald Trump. You heard him yesterday talking about a war he was looking forward to watching again, almost like it was a television program, because that's how he sees everything. For him, everything is just a performance on a stage. This is not a man who takes anything seriously. To him, everything is decoration. Everything is about appearances, how it looks. Donald Trump doesn't really care what's real or not, or whose lives are lost. So when Kristi Noem shows up in a campaign ad riding a horse and Trump thinks, Jesus, this is bad television, that becomes the greatest sin in his mind, being bad TV. But it didn't end there. When she was confronted about the real reason she might lose her job, the conversation turned to something far more serious. Americans have died, people died under her watch. And that's exactly what Jasmine Crockett confronted her about here.
Are you aware that the law that was written by this Congress makes it clear that members of Congress are allowed to, entitled to enter any detention?
Representative Crockett, I apologize. I have to run to vote in another committee, Secretary, and Mr. Schmidt will chair, and you will get extra 15 seconds, but I apologize for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much
Mr.
for your
Chairman.
testimony.
Appreciate it.
Are you aware that the law makes it clear that members of Congress are allowed to enter any detention facility at any point in time in which they choose to?
Yes, I'm aware of the visitation and oversight responsibility, and we work every day to try to accommodate members of Congress while taking into account the safety of those individuals that are being
Let me be
detained
clear.
there.
At any
And-
time, correct?
Yes, I understand there's litigation in this area.
No,
too,
no,
and so
that's not
we
my
are
question. I'm not asking you
facilitating
about
that.
litigation.
Yeah.
I'm asking you what the law is, because let me put it to you this
There's an
way.
appropriations rider that talks about
Correct,
oversight.
and appropriations
That is
are law,
correct.
because you are asking us to
Correct.
appropriate dollars right now for DHS, correct?
Correct.
And if we do that, you would take that as law, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that is what the law states, yet somehow, myself and another colleague, Congressman Castro, we ended up giving a 7-day notice to the Dilley detention facility because I had actually already gone to El Paso before. And when I went to that facility and I asked them why it was that they were requiring me to do something that specifically my branch of government had dictated was not required, they said it was because of you. They said you were the one that said that they were not allowed to allow us entry unless we gave a 7 days heads up. Is that true?
Yeah. The law specifically states oversight and visitations, and we are working to
My question
facilitate
is,
those. And we're at that
were
time
you,
working
did
to
you
facilitate-
give the instruction that members must give a 7 days heads up or not?
We had a policy in place that allowed us to get the
Did you,
staff
were you
there
the
to
one that ordered that
facilitate.
policy?
I have a responsibility for ensuring everybody in that
Okay.
facility is going to be safe, and that I have
Okay,
adequate
no, but that's not
staff
my question, because
to
the
conduct
problem,
a
let
tour
me
and
tell you why we
oversight
need
at the
to,
same time.
reclaiming my time. The reason that I'm talking to you about this policy, and you're talking to me about safety, is because I did go into the Dilley detention facility.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, they're not safe. This is why we need to conduct oversight, because your people continue. In fact, you have lost more lives in detention than anybody else. That is your record right now. So I don't expect that y'all are going to be the ones that are going to be best to keep them safe. This is why we are supposed to conduct oversight and not wait for you to give permission. In fact, after I left the Dilley facility, we were informed of a measles outbreak that was taking place in that facility. And another question I have, are you the one that ordered it to be reopened, because that facility was closed under Joe Biden?
Those facilities were opened with the new administration. I'd have to look
Okay,
and
you're
see
part
if
of the
that
new
was-
administration. Were you the one that ordered it to be open, is my question.
I would have to see when it was opened, because I wasn't sworn in until 5 days after
Okay,
the
well, this
president
was,
was
it
in
was
office,
reopened in
so
March.
I would have to look at
It was reopened in March of last year.
It's always hard to decide which member of the administration, which cabinet member had the worst week. But considering that Donald Trump is now reportedly thinking about firing Kristi Noem, and that her husband had to sit right behind her while she was questioned about her alleged affair on a plane she also bought with taxpayer money, I'd say, Kristi, you've won the ultimate total failure award this week, and you still have a few days left. So good luck with that. We'll keep following all of this on the show. And if you want to support us, as always, hit the subscribe button and leave a like under this video. If you stayed with us until the end, drop a blue heart in the comments, folks. We'll be back in the studio in a few days. Don't worry, we'll return to our regular schedule soon. But tonight I have a special announcement. I'll be in New Hampshire joining Governor Gavin Newsom on his book tour. We'll have a lot of questions. We'll definitely talk about the war in Iran. We'll talk about Israel. We'll discuss Bernie Sanders' new tax plan. There's a lot to cover, and we'll be diving into all of it. So make sure to tune in. We'll be on stage with Governor Newsom discussing a wide range of issues. But keep fighting, folks. Don't let anyone silence you. Until next time, we'll see you soon.